Hello and welcome to Maths Week 4. This week we're looking at fractions. The word fraction comes from the Latin fractus, meaning broken. And we've already looked at fractions in some respect already when we did lines of symmetry. As you can see, with this pentagon, it has 5 lines of symmetry and 10 parts. Those parts are fractions because they're exact. Because they're exactly the same triangle size. It's very important with fractions to have that exactness. Here's another example. You have hexagons and another one, triangles. Now, these fractions are called common fractions, which we're using to underpin our understanding of mathematical knowledge in regards to whole numbers or counting numbers. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a fraction is a part of a whole number. A fraction is part of 1. Okay, so the most common fractions that we see in everyday life are the decimal fractions in regards to money and percentages in regards to discounts on clothing or toys or whatever. Today we're going to look at common fractions, and those common fractions are going to be living inside regions or shapes like I showed you before. This is a triangle, so we're dealing with this kind of fraction. We're going to be looking at really halves. I'll show you an example of a half. And it's an example of a half a circle. And we're going to be looking at quarters. And we're going to be looking at wholes. Not holes in the ground, but wholes as in a whole number or a whole piece. So in terms of fractions, when we look at wholes, we have a whole biscuit, a whole region, or a whole number, as in 1. Now, a fraction is made up of 3 parts. The numerator, which is the top number. So that's the parts of the fraction that are of the whole. So in this one, this common fraction, we have one part of 3, which is 3 makes up the whole. The second part of a fraction is the fraction bar or divisional bar, and that's the bar in the middle. So it tells you how many parts are going into the whole. And the last part is the denominator. This is the denominator. It's the number of pieces that make up the whole part. In this case, it's 1, 2, 3. So we have the numerator, the number of parts, the divisional bar, which tells you how many divides that into the total part, which is the 3 parts. So a fraction can come in many different shapes and forms. A fraction can come in a bar diagram. A fraction can come in a number line. What we're going to look at today is an area model, and that'll be with squares or circles. This is a set model, which is one of a number of a group. So that's how we're looking at fractions today, our common fractions. So the learning intention today is we are working out how to identify and apply common fractions. And we'll know we've been able to do that if we can construct a regular shape and divide it into equal parts. If we can name and apply simple fractions. If we can apply the numerical fraction to the corresponding region. So that's the numbers, as in, here we go, 1/3, and that would be one of those 3, and that's the region that it's in, the circle. If we can order the size of simple common fractions, so we can order a whole, is the biggest, then there's a half, and then there's a quarter. And it goes further on. After a quarter, there's fifths, sixths, eighths. Fractional numbers are ordinal as well. First, second, although second is halves, which is a little bit confusing. And fourths is quarters. Okay? Now, a difficulty that we might come across when we're trying to find fractions is that sometimes people think that fractions are a certain size and they're not. So the way you divide them up is very, very important. It's very important that it is equal. So as you see with this triangle, all the parts are equal sizes. You can't have something where the lines are all different. The parts have to be laid on top of each other to see that they are equal. You will need today basically pencil, rubber, 6 sheets of paper. Now, if you can cut them into squares, that's fantastic. A piece of A4 paper is usually 21 centimeters. So all you have to do is to mark that at the end of your paper, draw a line down the middle and cut it into a square, because it's easier to do a square than a rectangle. Because we're going to find out how many ways we can make a half. The language we are looking at today is fraction, which is fractus, in Latin broken, is a part of a whole quantity or number. A natural number, that's one of the counting numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, every single number. A region, so that's a closed line 2D area like a rectangle or a circle. So like I showed you before, there's a rectangle, that's a region, and there is a circle as a region. Symmetry. So symmetry, which we learned about last week, part of the attribute of that is to make things even or the same size. And that's really important in making fractions. A half, that's 1/2 of a whole. So there's a half. Half. A quarter, which is a quarter of a whole, which is, let me do that. There we go. There's a quarter. Okay, so don't worry about that line. There we go. A third, where a third is splitting a shape into 3 equal parts, and that's a little bit hard, so maybe we might leave that one. And can you guess the sizes of a 5th, a 6th, and an 8th? Now, what I want you to do is to watch the accompanying video, Common Fractions. You're going to have 6 pieces of paper. With the first sheet of paper, fold it in half. Here it is, fold it in half. With a vertical line of symmetry. There we go. That's the first bit of paper. And there's 2 halves. There's my 2 halves. All right? Now you've got 3 more sheets of paper. I want to see how many different ways you can fold things in half. So now we've got horizontal. Folded that one in half, and I want you to try that as well. Then we've got diagonal, which is this way. And you can do it that way or that way. And they're both halves. Now, there are 6 ways to halve a sheet of paper. Can you show me some more? There's more than 6. There's lots and lots. But I want to see if you can find out. Now, the attributes of a half is that they both have to cover the equal area. Now, I've got a couple of examples for you. So here's my sheet of paper. And I've drawn a line down the middle, and then I've put in a 10 centimeter little block on either side. But that's both halves equal the same area. And here's another one, another example. And that's both halves. I want to give you to have a try at a couple of those. So watch the YouTube video. You can pause it and go through it. Now, what made you work it out that way? Is there another way of doing the task? What did you learn as a mathematician? How do you know your answer is correct? Do you think you found the quickest and best solution? Explain. Now, if you can take photographs of your work and upload it to Compass, that'd be fantastic. I'm also receiving some work attached to emails. So please, I'd love to see your outcomes. The 1-star activity, which is for the first group, that is to fold a piece of paper in half vertically, horizontally, and diagonally. The 2-star activity is to use 8 sheets of paper and fold it into halves 5 or 6 different ways, and then draw, like I did, some other ways of halving your paper. Okay? And the 3rd-star activity is to find as many ways to fold or dissect a sheet of paper into half. And are you game enough to quarter your shape? Have a go, take care, and if you've got any questions, please contact me. Thank you.